Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. My name is Brad Gottschall. I'm your Lower Paxton Township Manager. And in typical fashion, particularly for the benefit of those watching at home tonight, I will give a brief summary of tonight's agenda before we begin. So at the outset of the Lower Paxton Township, at the outset tonight, you'll see here, seated with us, the Lower Paxton Township Authority will hold a session for the purpose of acting on several resolutions, approving subsidy agreements for the 2019 bond issuance, authorizing temporary construction easements, and finally authorizing the relinquishment of a temporary construction easement. Once adjourned, the Board of Supervisors will take their seats to work through the agenda of the business session. Beginning under old business, the board will entertain a presentation of an update to the 2019 general obligation bond issue and swap agreement by Mr. Wenger of Susquehanna Group Advisors. Lastly, under old business, the board will act on an application for payment from Greenland Construction for the 2019 Township Drainage Improvements Project. Under new business, the board will entertain a presentation by Public Safety Director Koshiba on an agreement for a records management system with Cody Computer Services. Secondly, the board will hold a discussion on trick-or-treat activities for 2019. Next, the board will consider taking action on Resolution 19-26, accepting the certification of the 2020 minimum municipal obligations for the police and non-uniformed employees' pension plans. After this, the board will consider authorizing the execution of letters of engagement with Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz for the purposes of the 2019, 2020, and 2021 audits. Finally, before acting on improvement guarantees and the payment of township and authority bills, the board will consider action on the declaration of consolidation of previously subdivided lots for Paxtonia Fire Company and Resolution 19-25, accepting the dedication of portions of Conway Road as part of the Kendale Oaks development. At this point, the members of the authority are seated and prepared to open their meeting for business. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Municipal Authority. And the first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by the one and only Gary Christman.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Solid effort there, Gary. Well done. Well done. All right, moving right along, because I know Mr. Henry, who's in the audience tonight, and is the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, has a lengthy agenda that he wants to get through. So without further ado, let's move right into new business, resolutions 1916, 1917, authorizing and approving subsidy agreements, sewer and stormwater with the township for 2019 bonds. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Blaine, members
Weaver,
of the board.
how you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good.
I'm actually filling in for Mr. Smiter, who couldn't be here this evening.
Oh, my. So you act as legal counsel, too, tonight?
I am.
Wearing multiple hats. Okay. Here we go.
Which is why Mr. Wenger is here. Board members, you have before you tonight for action Resolution 1916 and 1917. 1916 is for the refinance of the 2009 BAD bonds, and Resolution 1917 is for the new money for the Stormwater Fund. Again, Mr. Smiter couldn't be here. These are the typical subsidy agreements that the authority has seen for every bond issue that the township supervisors do, just guaranteeing the payment from the authority for these debt service schedules. And again, Mr. Wenger is here to answer any questions the board members may have.
Mr. Wenger, how do you do? You do all right?
You did fine.
You did fine? Okay. It looks pretty self-explanatory. They're pretty consistent with the types of subsidy agreements we've seen in the past for debt issues. Is there any questions by any of the board members?
No, it's straightforward. We've heard this.
All right. If there is no questions, the chair will entertain
Mr.
a
Chairman,
motion.
just a quick question. Jay, is there anything new that we should be aware of? I mean, for me, it's rather straightforward, unless there was something really new that we needed to hear.
There's nothing new. I was just going to provide a summary at these.
Right. This is merely approving the refinancing, the authorization of the new money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Why don't you jump right in there, Gary, with the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve resolutions 2019-16 and 2019-17, which authorizes and approves the subsidy agreements with the township for the 2019 bonds, which includes the refinancing and the new money.
Mr. Crispin, thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zumas. Any further discussion? I think we should take this by roll call vote there, Ms. Smith.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Aye.
Mr. Chrisman?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Judd?
Aye.
Mr. Zumas?
Aye.
Mr. Blaine?
Aye. Motions 1916 and 1917 carry. Next item of business will be resolutions 1918-01 through 1918-06, listing and authorizing temporary construction easements for private sewers in the BC2A, B, and C mini basin project. Again, Mr. Weaver, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Resolutions 1918-01 through 1918-06 has been reduced to 05 because we did have one property to sign in the past week. So your listing has been revised to include just 5 property owners. Again, the board has seen these many times. These are the resales. Basically, before the project has started, a property has settled. The private sewer replacement agreements are not recorded. So therefore, we have to get a new agreement from the new property owner. The list that you have before you tonight, those folks have received a private sewer agreement. We've given them the 30-day period to sign. They have not. So to order to proceed with construction, we need authorization of these resolutions. Be happy to answer any questions.
So just to be clear, it's actually 1918-01 through 1918-05.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any questions from board members?
So, Mr. Weaver, they're
Yes.
notified after we take action tonight.
Mr. Stein will
That makes-
send them letters for the declaration of taking, just notifying them about the project, and he has a form letter, right, Steve?
No, I do. When I file a declaration, I send them what's called a notice to condemnee, which has a copy of the declaration attached to it.
Okay. So they'll get that from Mr. Stein?
They get that by certified mail.
Okay, so then we know that they received it.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yep.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Weaver? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve resolutions 19-1801 through and inclusive of 2019-1805, which authorizes the temporary construction easements for the private sewers in the BC 2A, B, and C, and SC 2B mini basin project as presented and recommended by Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Crispin, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second to Miss Lindsay. Sorry, Chris. You were short. Day late, dollar short on that one, guy. All right, maybe next time. All right, so we got a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? I think we could do this by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right. Next item. Mr. Weaver, you're busy tonight. Resolution 1919, authorizing the solicitor to file a declaration for relinquishment for a temporary construction easement.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 1919 is the opposite. We did have a declaration filed by Mr. Stein to replace the building sewer. However, we had a change in sale again, but rather than getting the new agreement from the property owner who was signing, this is to relinquish the previous owner's condemnation. We typically don't do this unless the property owner requests it, and Mr. Stein received a request today, Steve?
That's correct.
He received a request today to have this relinquished. Since we had a 30 meeting tonight, we added this to the agenda to take care of this relinquishment. And I believe Mr. Stein will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Stein, is there anything further you'd like to add?
Not really. It's pretty straightforward.
You know, that's outstanding.
Steve,
Anybody else with questions for Mr.
let's
Stein?
have a question. Steve, it says to replace a building sewer on certain land?
Yes.
So that, okay, it just sounds odd, certain land, but that's, okay.
And it's described in there what the property is, not only by address, but also by tax parcel number.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Stein? Okay, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion on Resolution 1919.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2019-19, which authorizes our solicitor to file a declaration of relinquishment for the temporary construction easement as presented and recommended by Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Crispin, did you feel the eyes of
Yes,
this
I
board
do.
looking at you? Is that looking for your lead on that one? All right, we got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second, Mr. Judd, you got on that one. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I think we can do this by voice acclamation as well. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, I get to turn this over to the illustrious Mr. Lawman Henry. As chairman of the Board of Supervisors, I'm going to adjourn the Sewer Authority meeting, or the Municipal Authority meeting, and we're going to go to the Supervisors meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for adjournment.
Second.
So moved.
Great meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlemen. I'm going to stay for the discussion.
Joey's on top of this.
Thank you, sir.
So we find out what that's for? Who put it there? Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Blaine, and I will unfortunately not be able to take your lead and be as brief as you were on the meeting, but we will move things along as rapidly as we can. So to that, we'll call to order this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors. Since we're patriotic, Mr. Judd, would you lead us again in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, let us go to approval of minutes of the meeting of May 22nd, 2019. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of May the 22nd, 2019 as prepared and circulated.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
At this point, we will move to public comment. Prior to having public comment, I would like to announce that the Board of Supervisors met an informational session prior to, and will meet again an informational session following this meeting. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the board on an item not on the agenda? Not on the agenda. Please come to the podium, if you will, sir, and give us your name and address.
Good evening, board members. My name is George Bass. I live at 106 Heather Drive. I have a list of things for the township. I don't appear very often, but Mrs. Lindsay knows I was here last year, and I'm bringing up the same issue, one of the same issues. My first complaint is feral cats in this township. I am tired of them. I don't like going to my flower beds and having to pick up all the time. Do we have an animal control in this township?
Can I talk?
Mr. Judd, would you like to brief the gentleman on our efforts in that regard?
We,
Lindsay as well.
yeah, we've been working on that issue for a while with the cat folks, the trappers. And I guess in a couple meetings from now, we'll have an ordinance that I believe is being advertised to contract with folks to trap, neuter, return, and hopefully, following the example of other townships, reduce the population.
Because I know last year I checked with the township manager and they said I had to pay $50. I had to trap it. I had to feed it and take care of it, take it spayed, neutered, and then no, that's not happening.
We're going to have vouchers. It'll be a trap, neuter, and release program. And it'll be through the township, and you'll be able to come and get a voucher for free
Okay.
to take and have the cats. And it's actually a TNVR, trap neuter vaccine release. So like Mr. Judd said, in a couple of weeks, we are going to be having that ordinance at a meeting, hopefully for having a discussion. Yeah.
That's not been
Okay.
approved.
Yeah. No,
Very
I didn't
good.
say
No,
that.
it hasn't been
I didn't say that. It said that it will be, a discussion, and then it'll go from there. So, but we do have volunteers that are helping us now, that are doing a lot of trapping. They have been getting a lot of cats. So, and if they don't abide, if the ordinance is passed, after the discussion, if they don't abide by it, then there is a consequence to that.
Okay, thank you. Street cleaning. Your website, am I correct in some time ago you found $50,000 to upgrade your website? This is last year's. Yes, no?
We approved money in the budget for this year, and we'll be approving money in the budget next
It
year
was to upgrade the website.
for a major upgrade to the website, which is currently under construction.
Is that going to include when your street's going to be cleaned? Because where I live, normally, God knows when they show up, it's normally about 7 a.m. And my truck's on the street, and around they go, and other cars are on the street, around they go. Never see them again ever. Unless you're up and about and hear them coming at 7 a.m., it don't get done. I mean,
Well-
you don't have time to move your vehicle.
Maybe we don't know yet, but we're about to roll out a notification system where you can sign up for notifications of various township activities. I don't know that was something that we considered, and I don't know the logistics of that, but I imagine that'd be something that would fall under that possibility, that if we know when the streets are going to be cleaned, and we have it somewhere on somebody's desktop in the township building, maybe that's something that you can sign up proactively, say, give me a notification, not on everything, but I want a notification on street cleaning and whatever else you check off.
What's strange is last year I called them, the maintenance, and they called me to tell me the street was going to be cleaned. I haven't heard word since. However, I do get calls from Paxton telling me that the streets are going to be cleaned. Do I care?
Well, I don't
Okay.
know why that is.
I don't know, but I do.
Brad,
Anyway, okay.
what we could do is this might make a note for Leanne as we do our website and public notification system. I'm certain that our Public Works Department obviously has to have a schedule for when they are going to do this, which probably can change depending on weather conditions.
Right.
But to the degree that we have a schedule and keep to it, I don't see any reason why it can't be posted on the website or included in our new mass notification system if folks want to opt into it.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at the logistics of that. Just for
Yeah.
point of clarification, the reason most likely a municipality like Paxton is able to put out notifications because they clean their streets twice a year potentially, whereas the township is cleaning their streets every single day. We have an ongoing
Oh, I see.
a daily cleaning of our streets, so it's a little more difficult for us to put out those notifications, but
But
to
would
the
you have some
gentleman's
type of, at least a basic schedule?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
To the gentleman's point, we may be able to put out some type of a quadrant schedule or something that would clarify
Might be as
that.
easy as posting a PDF to the
Right,
website.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Two of my favorite subjects coming up. The sewer bill. I know Mr. Chrisman doesn't want to hear about this because last year I brought this up. I came to the authority meeting about a fair and equitable sewer bill, and Mr. Chrisman stated that no matter what, he would never vote for it. But my point is, if we found $50,000 upgraded website, at the authority meeting last year, the gentleman said it would probably cost about $50,000 to do the analysis to do a fair and equitable sewer bill. So we got $50,000 for the website. Can we do an analysis to figure out a fair and equitable, what it would take to do a fair sewer bill based on water consumption? That's what I brought up last year, and evidently there's no interest in this township. It's easier just to say $153. We'll get into that later.
I don't think we can do that, Mr. Bass, because not everybody pays a water bill. A lot of people have wells.
Bingo, and so does Dairy Township, and they have a flat fee for well.
Well, I can say this, that's likely not something that's going to be under consideration in the near future. In view of the fact that we are absorbing no pun intended, the stormwater projects and the ongoing construction, reconstruction projects, adding another complicated component into it right now, that would be an overload.
As I mentioned last year, I was a computer software engineer for almost 5 decades, and I did work at Terry Township. They got the sewer bill in or the water bill in from the customer, for the customer, and they build the sewage. Pretty simple.
Are they replacing any of their sewer down there? Because, we've been in a project.
I haven't worked there in years.
Okay, because we've been in a project, Mr. Weaver, for what, 14 or 15 years? We're replacing all the sewers.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's based on what I'm saying is it's based on water consumption. Does the family of 4 put more sewage in or one person? What's fair?
Well, and the argument, that was a question I asked as soon as I joined the board. And the response is, it's the amount of sewage going in is one thing, but it's the entire vast infrastructure that will not change whether or not you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 people in the house. The cost to pay for all of that to get the waste to the plant is the exact same whether or not you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 people in the house. The costs don't change at all.
Who should pay more?
Who should pay more?
Here, if 4 people are putting more in, or
No,
one
but
person's
that's
putting
what
more in.
that's what I used to say. But what I've found out, and I think it's a convincing argument, is that the cost, the infrastructure, doesn't change whether it's just me or it's me and the other 3 people in the house. The actual treatment at the very end is not really the bulk of the cost. It's getting it there, and those costs don't change whether or not, depending on the number of people. That's the question I asked. That's the answer I got. And to me, it's kind of convincing.
But, along the same line, and I don't want to, drag this out, but along the same line, isn't there a reserve for infrastructure improvements? Because most people don't do it. Electric companies don't do it, water companies. When it breaks, now we got to fix it.
Well, we are replacing everything every year.
You did mine. I know what's going on.
Because we're under consent orders from DEP to do it, so we're just replacing everything and have been for years and years.
Last
Will
but
be
not
for
least,
years and years.
on the line of the sewer. Did anybody see the WGL story a few weeks ago? Anybody?
About what?
About the E. coli in the Susquehanna River.
That was all over the news.
Bingo. We're paying $153 a quarter to send our sewage to Harrisburg. And we then dump it
Not
into
all of it.
Well, we send some of it, and it's being dumped into Susquehanna sometimes once, sometimes twice a week. Huh? So it's not being processed?
I can address that.
Can you address that, Mr.
Yeah.
Weaver?
So similar to Lower Paxton, the CRW who took ownership of the system and runs it, they are negotiating a consent decree with the state and the feds, and that's going to be 20, 30, 40-year program.
Yeah, I saw it on paper.
If you go onto their webpage, you can review their current long-term control plan that discusses how they plan on solving that problem. But it's pretty complex, and it's not finalized yet. But they do have a requirement from the feds and the state to fix that problem, and they have a plan currently on their webpage to do that.
Supposedly it's going to be like 20 years, from what I read in the paper.
It's just similar to ours. It takes a long time to fix a problem of that size.
All of a sudden, they don't look for growth. I mean, look at the township, how the township grew.
I can't speak to what
You see
their
what I'm saying
plans
about
are.
planning?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys.
We don't control what they do.
No, but you control how much you bill us to send it somewhere.
That's not based on.
That's the processing. That's what it just brought up.
That's not. There's apples and oranges there.
Okay, so we keep improving. The townships gets bigger, we send more and they can't handle it. Yes, no, maybe?
No, if that were the case, the state would say, you can't build anymore.
Yeah.
The state would say, no more building. So it's not quite that bad. Obviously, there was some kind of violation. That happens. That's going to
That
happen.
happens a lot, supposedly.
Well, just one last comment. I'll be happy to meet with you anytime to discuss the technicalities of the plans, but it's a nationwide problem. It's been basically covered for decades. All these old cities there's papers, white papers on the 50 large cities have been tackling this problem for the planning part for the last 10 to 15 years. Because of the size and nature of the problem, it takes a long time just to get the plan approved. But all the cities around the country are like Harrisburg and Sarah W. are addressing the problem. It just takes some time.
Anyway, going along the line of the $32 stormwater fee in conjunction with that. So we're paying because runoff going in, you know, they got to take care of that. But meanwhile, some sewage is going into Susquehanna. Anyway, relative to stormwater fee, where can I access, relative to stormwater fee, revenue and details of exactly all expenses? All disbursements, for what, exactly, you know, all the detail of exactly what's going on.
Budgets, we just happen to be talking, looking at the budgets the last few meetings, so if you go back, the last authority meeting.
We have a budget that was reviewed by the board in August, and we'll have a final budget for approval in November. So at that time, that'll be a public meeting.
That was like I think the last Tuesday in August or something.
Right.
So I believe that if you go to our website, go to the meetings page, look for the last authority meeting, which I believe is the last week in August. The agenda's there. Both budgets are on there. Both proposed budgets are on there.
But what about the details of expenditures, the details of expenditures?
Well, it depends on how much details you want.
For example, I was just somewhere today and somebody told me, was there an $870,000 disbursement for some creek over in Williamsburg Estates?
Some what?
An $870,000 disbursement?
So the budget has complete line items that are on the webpage that you can view.
Okay.
So every line item and every expenditure with the total expenses are on the budget, and you
Okay.
can view that on the webpage. What you're referring to is the board just took action as part of our MS4 permit.
Right.
We have to do stream bank restoration projects, and they authorize HRG to begin the design for the first project that's required.
And I'm also looking that, you know, I mean, when something starts, when it ends, what's been done? I mean, what exactly has been done?
In terms of stormwater, so
Yeah.
the stormwater plan is basically governed by PADEP and EPA. We're getting a permit in January. We're revising the application right now, and that's going to have a 5-year schedule of projects that we have to do. And we can't predict what's going to happen after that 5-year permit.
No, but I'm saying, but if you have it there, well, you know, that number one started January 1 for sake of argument, and it's done May 31st. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be there somewhere?
Oh, well, I guess we should say we just put that page together. I think it's called Lower Paxton Works. I hope it's on the website. Huh?
Lower Paxton
Lower
Network.
Paxton Network. It just went up. It's just, and it lists the stormwater and sanitary sewer projects. There's maps.
Picture.
Okay.
There's information. Between that and the budget, I think that'll give you something to chew on.
Appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you much.
Okay,
And if
thank you,
not,
sir.
you can make an appointment with Mr. Weaver, and he'd be more than happy to meet with you.
Does anybody else have an item they'd like to address that is not on the agenda this evening? Okay, with that, chairman and board member comments. Board members, do you have any comments?
I have one. I would like to congratulate Director Kashiba and his wife Missy for winning first place in the Harrisburg Police League for charity Dancing with the Stars. Congratulations, Director. Yeah. It's awesome.
Is karaoke next? Absolutely not.
And then last night, I represented the board, the Council of Governments delegate, and I represented them at dinner that they had for Lower Paxton Township. I was the representation.
Any other board member comments? Mr. Gottschall, the manager's report.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, good evening. Just one item to report on this evening. Our office actually has just received some good word today that the township, through the Commonwealth Financing Authority, was awarded $275,000 in grant funding for the Asylum Run Stream Restoration Project at Stonebridge Apartments, going along with the conversation of stormwater. The township has applied for $300,000 with a 15% local match requirement for this project, and the project has an estimated construction cost of $397,421. On this award, the township would like to thank Senator DeSanto, Representative Lewis, and also Congressman Perry for providing letters of support towards the project as well. Just as a clarification, this award is specific to the stream bank restoration project within Asylum Run, and it goes towards the larger township stormwater plan and budget, which for 2020 is approximately $4 million. So in the grand scheme of things, it's a slight blip on the radar in terms of overall township stormwater needs and projects, but it is a huge windfall for the township in terms of funding that particular project. So we thank the congressman for their participation.
Okay. Thank you. With the board's indulgence, I would like to move up for discussion first. Under item E, under new business subdivision plans, we have action on a declaration of consolidation of previously subdivided lots for the Paxtonia Fire Company. They are here with their attorney, who I guess is being paid for by the hour. So rather than have them sit there for 2 or 3 hours, if you would like to come up to the podium. And Brad, I know I'm throwing this at you at the last minute. You have it on the screen.
Yes, sir.
Great. Do you want to explain what we're doing?
Yes. So, as a follow-up to the last board meeting, wherein the agenda included the declaration of consolidation of previously subdivided lots, the fire company is looking to essentially combine 8 parcels into one. So from there, I don't want to steal your thunder, but
If you could give us your name and address.
Bring up the,
I'm Elizabeth Feather. I'm here on behalf of Paxtonia Fire Company. President John Reed from the fire company is here with me.
Can you check your mic, please?
Microphone,
Hit the
yeah.
button
I
there.
think it might have been shut off.
It's green light.
That's green light. Get
Sorry.
closer then.
Okay.
If you would. Thank you.
All right, I'll repeat everything I just said.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Feather on behalf of Paxtonia Fire Company. I'm here with President John Reed from the fire company tonight. And yes, we have in front of you our declaration of consolidation of previously subdivided lots. And we are seeking the township's approval to go ahead with this declaration and consolidate the 8 currently divided lots into one parcel.
Okay. Go ahead, Robin.
yeah, I just had a question, that's why we had asked you to come back. Can you tell me why you're consolidating all the lots? I'm hoping you're not moving, but if you could just let the board and the public know the reasoning behind it?
All right, I'll let John speak.
Okay.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. It just seems kind of as years went by, we just kept adding those lots and parcels. So we thought it would be better just to put everything all in one lot. We're not moving. We're not going anywhere. I know you asked that question to me, but we plan to stay there and provide service. But we just thought it'd be easier to do that.
Are you going to be doing anything on the land?
No, we have no plans for.
Okay.
The only plan we do have is for maybe the area that we do some fire training on to put maybe some better fire training props there. But we'd have no plans to building additional buildings or anything.
And do you think this will help you with your taxes, that by consolidating them, would it help you them not be as inexpensive?
That has risen, but I'm not real privy on that. But,
Okay. Okay.
Maybe Elizabeth can answer that.
I don't think it's going to help on property taxes just because it's the same acreage, basically, that.
I didn't know because they're all individual, so, okay,
Correct, yeah, it should not affect the property taxes at all.
okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Brad. Since it's coming from Ms. Derby and she's not here, and I know you're speaking in her stead, I'm making an assumption, I don't like to ever assume anything, but that it is coming with the recommendation of the department.
yes, sir, it is.
Any public questions or comments on the issue? Okay, if we have no additional questions, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the consolidation of the previously subdivided lots for Paxtonia Fire Company Plan 2019-24 as presented and recommended by staff.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, John.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will return to the regular order of business and go to number 7 and conduct 2 items of old business, beginning with Mr. Wenger. And we have an update on the 2019 general obligation bond issue and swap agreement. Mr. Wenger, good evening. Good evening. Thank you. And we have paper.
Thank you, sir.
Paper.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
I thought about putting it on your screen, and I just thought it'd be too many columns to follow effectively. So hopefully this is an easier format to follow, and also something you can keep in a file to reach for if you need it. We did sell the bonds, and closing is scheduled for October 10. By way of timing, we were very fortunate. Since we marketed your bonds, interest rates have gone up actually considerably just in a 10-day period. So we
Gone
think
which direction?
Up, higher rates.
They went up.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So the debt service savings would be less today than they were when we marketed your bonds. Obviously, the Fed meets today and tomorrow, so who knows what happens after that. But the current thinking is that the recession that everybody thought was coming might not be coming, so rates kind of pop back up. And,
Keep your
and
fingers
if you're asking me,
crossed.
I don't know. So if I knew, I'd be in Atlantic City also. The first page then, which with the color, is a very high-level look at the existing debt service in the blue section on the left. And then the middle green is all of the components of the bonds that were just marketed. So we have the refunding of the Build America bonds, which is sewer-related. Then we have the Stormwater project in the second column. And then what we call the general obligation funds, which are the Friendship Center, fire equipment, police upgrades, and the bridge project, all with the annual debt service outlined on one page for you. And then you can see the far right column, you have the general fund allocation, the authority allocation, and total debt service in the far right column. With respect to the refunding, the savings were, I'll get to that in a minute, but more than we originally had budgeted, or at least in our last conversation, rather. We have not extended the term. We simply were refinancing a higher rate with a lower rate. The new money projects were laid in after discussing with your township manager as to what repayment terms you wanted to have. But again, you can see on the far right column is your total debt service. Peaks at about $10.3 million and then starts to decline 7-8 years out. So there is some capacity to add debt in the future as you consider more projects. If you flip the page, then this is just details of the aggregate 2019 bonds. So just over $52 million of bonds issued. You can see the allocation. $42.5 million was applied to the refunding, $10.244 million for stormwater management projects, $365,000 for the Friendship Center, $3.1 million for fire equipment, just under $500,000 for the police radio project, and $350,000 for the bridge. The cost of issuance are summarized there. And as you recall, we were looking at one point that the swap amendment would cost about $2.5 million. That number dropped to about 1.8, so we were happy for that. And then the next couple of pages is just the debt service associated with the 2019 bonds. So this makes up the aggregate of all the components that were outlined on the prior page in the color boxes.
Jay, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So the police radios and the fire equipment, I had asked that we not take it out 25 years, so we did not, right?
If you turn back to that page, just to review, the Build America bonds go out to 2039, which we refinance to the same term. The Stormwater project is a little longer. The Friendship Center debt goes to 2030. The fire equipment goes to 2030, and the police radio equipment's also to 2030. So they are not 25-year projects.
Okay, so it's 10, okay.
The bridge is a 25-year project that was deemed to be a long, useful life asset.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. And then the refunding, just to isolate a little bit of that, if you flipped a couple pages back, we have the refunding of the 2009 bonds. Again, the allocation to that is just over $39 million, which included the amendment to the swap of $1.8 million. The swap now applies to your future sewer project debt that will come online in the coming years. And then the following page, 2 pages, are the prior debt service, the refunding debt service, and the savings. And in the aggregate, the debt service savings were $7.8 million. In present value terms, that's 5.8, and that's net of all the transaction expenses.
So the savings were 5.8
$8 million net.
less. The savings from the refinancing is 5.8 after all the
Yes.
fees and everything have been.
Yes.
Wow, good.
Yep. On a gross basis, 7.8 million, but some of those are long dated, meaning out in future years. So when we bring those back to today's dollars, it equals $5.8 million. But over the life, it's about 7.8 million.
Okay.
So this is intended to be a handy reference as you want to know what the components were, what the aggregate debt is, what the savings are. This is the reference document. Again, the closing is scheduled for October 10. We think everything's in order. The subsidy agreements were approved by the authority this evening, so we don't see any obstacles getting to closing. We obviously need DCD approval, which we should have in the coming weeks.
So October 10th is the closing date.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Build America bonds will be paid off, I believe, on October 10 as well.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Wenger? I know we've spent a lot of time on this,
Yeah.
as we should, given the sizable. But what I think cannot be emphasized enough is the list of projects that you went through and the fact that a substantial portion of this is a refinancing, not new debt, and that obviously the capital equipment for the fire trucks comes out of that fund. There's a separate tax that we pay for that. The sewer authority will be paying its obligations back with ratepayer dollars, as will the stormwater authority. So the actual impact on the general fund in the overall scheme of this is rather
modest. That's
rather
correct.
modest.
Yes.
We like to keep the impact on the general fund as modest as possible. That's,
Yes, and again, going back over the last year, the goal was to combine all of these new money projects as you develop them with the refunding so that we were doing just one financing, not multiple financings over a period of several months. So the timing, I think, worked out very well.
and that saves us on fees?
Yes. Yeah, every time you borrow money, it costs money, so yes.
Okay. Board members, questions?
Thank you.
Why are you
Gary,
laughing?
no questions?
I hate to admit it, but the last number on here is going to say that I'm reaching 100 years old.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Christmas is observing that the full debt will be paid off about his 100th birthday.
We would be happy to have a celebration in his home
Which is
for the birthday and the payoff of
We'll
the
burn the debt on my birthday.
burn
Oh,
the
we're paying it off
mortgage
in
and,
2
light the
years? Is
candles
that
all the same day.
That's a rude awakening.
That's a
I wanna
rude
tell you.
awakening,
That's a
right.
very rude awakening.
The other just highlight that I'll point out is for what is really long-term debt, your overall cost was just under 3%. So extraordinarily attractive borrowing rates for a long-term debt. That is almost
Yes.
unthinkable, but here we are.
Well, I have one staff comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
That Mr. Christian would like to hear is, I did work with Jay and John on the refinancing of the sewer bonds, that because of the refinancing, they were able to restructure our future payments with that refinance, which helps Mr. Christman get level debt service out 5 to 10 years from now when we take on additional debt. So you'll see that in the structure, how the payments are up in the beginning, and we restructured them on the back end to help with the board's direction to try to have, for the sewer authority fund, to have level debt service.
And that
as
will
much
help
as
with
possible.
my taxes when I retire and reach that stage where everyone says I'm now on a fixed income.
There you go.
Not going there.
However, comma, we are all on a fixed income.
Oh, yes.
Bill makes a good point. We did take that significant spike out of the debt service.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jay. And
So
Mr.
that-
Weaver for your assistance in that project.
That provides more continuity and future rates, correct?
And equity for all.
It does. It helps keep a balanced budget looking out further, correct?
Excellent.
If there are no other questions, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so We need to, under old business, take action on an application for payment number 2 for the 2019 Township Drainage Improvement Project. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this application before the board this evening is merely a rather straightforward accounting of weekly payroll that has been submitted by Greenland Construction Incorporated in the amount of $175,123.72. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to attempt to answer them.
So these drainage improvements are, is that out of general fund or is, yeah, it would be out of general fund, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the payment number 2 for the 2019 Township Drainage Improvement Project in the amount of $175,123.72 as recommended by staff.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We'll now move to number 8, new business, and begin with A, which is a presentation and action on agreement for software and professional services with CODY Computer Services, Inc. Good evening, Director Kashiba.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I'm excited to talk about a proposal for the police department in our records management system. And that records management system that I'm speaking of tonight is Cody Systems. Cody Systems currently is being utilized by several other large municipalities within Dauphin County. And they had, as well as we anticipate doing with your approval, had moved from InSync, which is our current records management system, to the Cody Systems. And when I asked the personnel downstairs to give me just an overview on the different, I did sit on a couple of presentations from this, but ultimately we came up with 18 various bullet points for consideration that made this so much drastically different. Of those 18 bullet points, only 3 are capable with our current system called InSync. Some of those systems that I'll bring to your attention that make it extremely important for time management, staffing with our staffing and handling calls and getting it into our system, and a host of other things that happen with police type activity is data conversion from a couple of different systems that we've had over the years. This proposal that I'm going to read to you takes that into consideration, converts all that old data that we have from all of our older systems into the Cody system. And what that does for us by being able to convert all that data, and it's quite expansive, is gives us a search capability to go back many, many years in our systems and look at suspect information, to look at case information, and extract that information for current incidents that we're looking at and examining for any kind of comparisons. The other thing it does, it provides what's called our evidence management system is called the BEAST, and the BEAST system has an interface with Cody Systems as well. So to put that in perspective for you, if we go out to a particular scene, we take some evidence from that scene. We're able to click a few buttons with Cody System. It'll transfer the information from that we've already put into the system into our BEAST system. We'll come back, simply print out the item numbers that are listed. We'll put a sticker on it, and it'll go into our evidence property room very quickly. So it's a very timely fashion to get our evidence in. The other big component with this is through the county CAD data interface. So from when the 911 call taker enters the information and starts taking call taker information, the 911 caller information starts being put into their CAD, it will interface with our Cody systems, and we can drag that data over. It will auto-populate those fields, and again, shorten the amount of time that our officers are spent actually working on reports because of that particular system. And I could move on and on through the 18 different components, but those are some of the highlights of this component that I believe is going to take us into the future and interface with the work that we are doing on so many different levels throughout the police department. That particular proposal that I have to offer tonight and hopefully seek board's approval on, ultimately the subtotal of the entire package with data migration and some other issues that are in there with the different modules, the BEAS interface, those sort of things, and training modules to get us up and running with this was $148,350. Due to the fact that two of your command staff and the police department have been trained at the FBI NA, they gave us an additional discount as far as that was concerned, as well as a Dauphin County initiative that they're trying to push Cody Systems. And then on top of that, they've also offered just shy of 5% savings if the agreement's signed by the end of this month, which is a 2-year process, which I would propose. This year, we've done very well in our budget downstairs. I've been watching the numbers as we move through. We have a significant portion of our budget remaining, and I believe that the budget this year could cover the cost associated with this year's payment of $62,724 within the existing operating budget for 19. And I've proposed in my 2020 budget a $50,224 payment for next year to complete the project. Now, years 2 through 4, there's, as we do with every records management system, we'll have annual fees associated with that. But 2 years to pay off this very important records management system for the police department. And so I'm seeking approval for the purchase of this over a 2-year period.
So Adam, after 2 years, we own it?
We own all the data that is converted into the system, yes, and all the other components of it. And then just like every other records management system, we have to pay the maintenance fees of the system and anything else that comes along with that particular software package.
Adam, do any of the other police departments have this system?
Yes, so 2 of the biggest agencies that recently moved to Cody systems was Harrisburg City and Derry Township.
Adam, with the, first of all, thank you for the explanation of how it got to 112, because I was doing the math here, but what's not stated there that you stated verbally was the 5%, and because if I'm doing the math from 148 through 50 minus 30,000, 118 and then 112, it didn't all match. But now when you put the 5% in on top of that, that makes sense. So, okay, thank you for that. My second question has, unless I'm wrong, was I right with what I said?
No, you're correct, sir.
Okay.
Was that a question?
Yeah, I stated it as a statement, but it was really a question.
Sounded
Okay.
more like a statement.
Exactly. With the amount of money you're spending in the new program, I understand it's for the software. I know it's for the service fees, the licenses, and that sort of thing. Does that also include, if necessary, any labor cost, meaning anyone from Cody to come and provide any in-service training for our staff, or did I miss that if it's written somewhere?
It is in the proposal, sir. It's 15 implementation service days for training.
Okay.
With a $22,000 cost to that.
Okay. And again, I'll follow up to that. In as much as the contract says 15 days, are you satisfied with the number of days necessary? And if the answer is you're not sure, then my question is if they would need to return beyond 15 days to provide additional services, at what cost is that?
I'm very comfortable with the 15 days that we're looking at. They came out for a preliminary proposal and display of their system, and it was relatively easy compared to what our officers are using now. In addition to that, it has a 24/7, 365 support system built into it at that expense, and is built into that annual maintenance fee as well. So if we have any issues, we simply go on to a chat room with them or pick up a phone and speak to a live individual to walk us through it.
Good. I just know that many times when you implement new programs, you get X number of days in service and they walk away, and then now what do we do after 15 days? So I just want to make sure you're comfortable, we're safe, so that the program is successful and our staff is very comfortable working with it. Okay, good.
And how often do these change? Like, how long can we expect that we'll be able to use this system? That's a tough question, I know.
It is. So the InSync system that we are utilizing currently came as a unified approach to our records management system in Dauphin County. And I think some of the things that were thought to be possible with that system obviously didn't work. So I'm very hopeful based on their ability to expand this system that this will be something that we'll rely on heavily for many, many years to come. I would say the system we're working on, the exact years escape me. It hasn't been that long. A lot of that funding came as a result of through the township as well as some other entities to support that through the county. But I think this system is so robust and so easily modified to there's no problem we can't tackle sort of concept with them. And I believe that this will work for us for many years to come.
I hope so. That's the only thing you think of is they change so quickly, and then, and 5 years later, it's on the back end of, and there's newer stuff, and you hate to be rolling out, $100 and some $1,000 every 5 years or something like that. And it's hard to predict the future and predict technology, but that's all. I mean, it sounds like it's a good thing. It sounds like we're going to get the bang for the buck.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Adam, just out of curiosity, what's the state police use?
It's been quite some time, but they're using a system that I believe that was out of Canada, and they had their challenges with that system as well. And I think they're looking to change their system or possibly migrate to another system in the future as well.
How long's Harrisburg have it?
Harrisburg is probably, they've been through the implementation phase, so within a year. Their biggest, again, the biggest portion of this, where a lot of that funding from the proposal comes from, is that migration of that data and being able to move all that information over. I can't speak strongly enough about what this system is going to be able to do for the police department when it comes to suspect information and link analysis and those sort of things, because it'll be tied in. There's a backside of this project as well that the county does support on Cody called COBRA, and we are tied into the COBRA system, which every police agency then feeds into COBRA, as well as in other counties that surround Dauphin County. So the ability to pull other data from other areas is just tremendous with this system. And we're very hopeful that we can convince the Dauphin County Prison to maybe come on board as a feed into the system with their data as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So Adam, with the upgrade of the radios and then the upgrade of this, we should be up to where we need to be downstairs?
I believe, yes, ma'am. I believe we'll be moving forward completely. And as I like to tell the officers downstairs, we're in drive. There should be no neutral, and we're moving forward and doing it, giving them the best tools that they can possibly have to complete their task in a more efficient manner.
Very good. Any other board member questions or comments? Any public questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will move we approve the agreement for software and professional services with Cody Computer Services in the amount of $112,323 to be paid on or before September the 30th, 2019.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Director? There you go. You might want to stay there for the next discussion as well.
Okay.
Mr. Godshall, we need to have a discussion on trick-or-treat night. And one of our neighboring municipalities has opted to go to 31st of October, which actually is Halloween. That's not been our practice, so what are we looking at here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yes, as stated, surrounding municipalities in some fashion are considering or have already considered a move to this date, as well as the fact that through our communications manager, we have identified some public interest here in Lower Paxton specifically of taking a look at the date of trick or treat. So I had asked the board to put discussion of this topic on tonight's agenda to reaffirm either, number one, reaffirm the date that has currently already been established by the chiefs of police through Dauphin County, or consider an alternative to that date. But either way, some discussion on the topic would be most helpful to staff and to the public. Thank you.
there was rumor of a petition. Have we actually received said petition?
Although we have not received copy of the petition directly through our communications manager, I believe the petition is on the neighbors of Lower, not neighbors of Lower Paxton, but the neighbor next door group,
Sure.
which is the platform online. So we are indirectly aware of the petition
And the petition is asking
to change to the 31st.
change the date to the 31st.
Correct.
Other than West Hanover, what other municipalities that are contiguous with ours have switched to 31st?
I'd have to.
Director?
I'm not aware of any, again, to reaffirm what Mr. Gottschall had said, the Dauphin County Chiefs as a unified front has agreed on the 24th as a date. I just became aware.
Which is the last Thursday, correct?
Next to the last Thursday.
It's the fourth Thursday.
Fourth Thursday.
So I'm only aware of the recent, I believe it was West Hanover.
And
that
I think,
moved in that
I think another Hanover or two.
Possibly
I think
south.
there's, yeah, I think there's at least one or two other Hanovers. And hey, I like this conversation better than sewers and bonds. You know, I know this isn't the most pressing topic in the world, but our people don't ask for much, frankly. You know, they really don't. So, and I have noticed that this is a topic of conversation. So, I appreciate us taking it up today. Could you, just for everybody's benefit, tell us how we normally go about this, picking the date?
Yes, sir. So the Dauphin County Chiefs, which are all a board of police chiefs in Dauphin County that meet monthly to decide on various things going on throughout Dauphin County, agree on a specific date that all the counties or all the municipalities within Dauphin County would hold the trick or treat. The reason for that is with every municipality having trick or treat on the same night, it gives you a better balance of the influx of vehicle and pedestrian traffic that is potentially going to impact your municipality. For instance, if Lower Paxton, if the board were to change this, as did the Hanovers, my assumption, based on a history of what happens during trick-or-treat nights, is you'll see a larger influx of children and vehicle traffic, moving those children into Lower Paxton potentially to participate in our trick-or-treat night because theirs is on a different night. Subsequently, what will that do for the police department and emergency services? I think for the police department, we're going to have to take a look at our staffing levels. Traditionally, because we're doing it as the same night as every other municipality, our staffing levels are pretty much constant. If we make this change, we can still make the adjustment. We're within the time period that we can make some adjustments, but we would have to upstaff that just based on the anticipation of vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic coming into Lower Paxton, specifically from outside areas, to take advantage of the trick-or-treat process here on a different date.
And specifically with that one in mind, if we were to make the change to the 31st, what happens when the 31st falls on a Friday night here in Lower Paxton, where we have Landis Field and we have football games? Would you have to up your staffing, again, to accommodate Halloween night on Friday night, the 31st, as well as accommodate the need at Landis Field?
I believe our extra duty coverage would be able to handle that. We know well in advance what the extra duties such as Landis Field requires, so we would already be staffing that well ahead of time. So the only issue for us to take a look at is, this particular year, if you did it this year, we'd have no historical data to support whether we had an increase of calls and foot traffic and motor traffic.
And this year it does? Oh, it's Thursday, so yeah.
So we would have to rely on historical data if you would change that to ever increase the proper number of staffing throughout the township. But as far as the extra duty details, I believe we would be covered.
To a follow-up to that, are there any other days of the week? That was the only one I could think of. That the 31st would fall on that would require you to increase your staff to accommodate Halloween and that other activity? And I don't know what that other activity is that's going on in the municipality.
I don't believe so. I would cringe a little more if that occurred on a weekend.
That's what I was thinking. Weekend, Saturday or Sunday, would that create a problem?
It depends on the time frame and whether or not, again, you're doing that in conjunction with every other municipality or whether you're an outlier like some municipalities, because that will obviously change the foot traffic and the motor traffic, as well as the weekend traffic. That would be a drastic increase, I would think.
And I'm assuming, you haven't said it, but I'm assuming your group that meets have not abandoned maintaining one central date or time for Halloween.
That's correct.
You're still sticking with your recommendation of the fourth Thursday
several
for
meetings,
consistency.
I'm sorry, sir, but several meetings prior to this coming to the forefront, it was reaffirmed that was the best operational concept to be on one particular evening. Yes.
Now, for this year, with so every year you've been doing it the fourth Thursday of October. This year, did you guys look at the calendar and say, "Oh well, it's Halloween was on the fifth Thursday.
Yeah.
Let's just again, because this meeting that you're talking about this, you're actually talking about other pressing matters."
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so. So I'm not, but I'm curious. Did that come up? Say, hey, well, the 31st is the last Thursday in October. Let's just do it on the fifth Thursday.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me that you have Halloween on a Thursday, which apparently was one of the goals, to not have it on a Friday. Personally, I've always frankly been opposed to this policy. I think it is unnecessarily confusing to people, and to have people out trick-or-treating a week before Halloween, and then a week later is Halloween when people can go out and do whatever. Again, it seems to me all you're doing is creating two potential nights for people to be out, whether they're trick-or-treating or engaging in, shall we say, other activities. But I understand everybody doing it on the same night, but what I've never been able to understand is, why don't you just everybody do it on Halloween? And if Halloween's on a Friday and football's an issue, then do it the day before, rather than do it a week before and confuse the heck out of everybody. This policy to me has never made even the most remote amount of sense.
I can assure you that I'll look into that, but this is being my first year on the Dauphin County Chiefs. I don't know historically why they've chosen to do that particular fourth Thursday like that. You bring up a valid point that they could have switched it to the 5th and made it the 31st. Yeah. But I can, moving forward into next year, I can bring it to the forefront that we change our, as a group, the Dauphin County Chiefs, that we change that to overall throughout Dauphin County to the 31st. Now,
Yeah, I agree with our chairman. It seems to me it would be like having two Christmases in December.
Oh, wait a minute. There's not a bad idea there.
Well, and then next year is a leap year, so it's going to be a Saturday night. Just warning you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, this year, every year's different. So I think this year it especially came up just because of the date that it fell on. Happened to be Thursday, happened to be Halloween, and then some other municipalities. So we could even switch it this year, see what happens, and then address it again next year. I'll give you guys time to set aside all your other pressing matters to say, let's take another look at this. Maybe we can all still have it on the same day, but we'll have it either on Halloween or closer to Halloween. I don't know if parents would want to do it on the weekend. I suspect not. I think.
Actually, a weekend, I understand a weekend would be more of an issue for staffing, but probably would be better for parents and for children to do it on a weekend when it's not a school night or school the next day. Well, in any event, there are a lot of ramifications to be discussed.
There are a lot of variables.
A lot of variables.
I think if it's going to be changed to the 31st, I think all the municipalities have to do it because, we're in a horseshoe. So I'm the last street in Lower Paxton, and the other half of the horseshoe is Susquehanna. So what's going to happen is if Susquehanna doesn't change on the 24th, they're going to be knocking at my door. And on the 31st, the Lower Paxton kids are going to be knocking at the door. And I mean, we get 100 kids now. So, I mean, if we're not answering the door on the 24th. So, I mean, I know we have a little bit of time, but I didn't know maybe if the Chiefs Association could look at that and see what, you know, if they could get all the municipalities to change. But, you know, I think everybody has to be the same night.
Ma'am, I think on such a short notice, I do have a Dauphin County Chiefs meeting tomorrow, but on such a short notice, I don't believe they'll make that change this year. They'll leave it up to the
And again, we
individual
have only
municipality.
one municipality that's standing out there by itself.
Well, I think it's more than one.
That we know.
Well, that we know. I mean,
Well, that have
in
taken
my view,
action.
they're the only
Not
ones.
a lot.
But that's the only one that's taken any action to establish that date. There may be other discussions, but the closer you get to the date, the harder it's going to be.
The harder it's-
And I agree with Ms. Lindsay, it's got to be the same date everywhere.
Not necessarily.
I think it does, because I know the confusion that it creates in other municipalities.
I think you're causing
I've lived
confusion
it.
by having trick or treat a week before the actual holiday when people, I mean, it makes, that this year especially, when Halloween is on a Thursday and you want it on a Thursday, it makes absolutely no sense to do it the week before. I just think it's unnecessarily confusing to people, that's all. But
It'd be preferable.
I'm not going to die on the hill on it.
No.
It'd be preferable.
We all have different opinions
I
on this
think
issue.
this year it falls on Halloween. The Thursday falls on Halloween. I think I think we could survive if for this year we put it on the 31st, and then you'll have a year to talk to your other police chiefs and.
May I suggest, since he has a meeting tomorrow, why don't we yield to what kind of information we receive as a result of Adam's meeting tomorrow morning?
Well, then we don't have a meeting for 2 weeks. You're
Well,
into
that's
the
true. You
1st
don't
of
have a meeting.
October, and that gives us no time.
I think he indicated he's not going to come back and say that they all agreed to switch it. Probably.
I believe based on the group that we're dealing with and police in general, change is always difficult.
But
so.
if you bring candy,
Perhaps if I dress
to the meeting.
perhaps if I dress as the Beast like I did for my dancing routine.
I'm assuming they have a lot of statistics that would indicate that weekends, particularly like a Friday night or a Saturday night, might have a much higher rate of crime, and to keep the kids off the streets with the additional traffic and additional crime might be an issue.
But I don't hear
But
that.
not on a Thursday.
I haven't heard.
from a
I haven't
Thursday
heard
to
you
a
say
Thursday.
that though. Do
I
we even
mean,
have mischief night anymore?
Not that I'm aware of. I
It
think
used to be a concern. It used to be a concern. And I think there was a time when they wanted to separate. They didn't want kids out trick or treating on mischief night, and they.
What kind of kids did you run with when you were young?
But Adam, when you think parties and crime and everything is elevated on a Saturday night versus a Thursday night,
yes, I believe that.
so I think maybe that's one of the considerations. But when they both fall on a Thursday, I agree with our chairman. Doesn't make any sense to me to change it.
And I think if we're having this discussion in the future, when that day would fall on a Saturday or a Friday night.
Next year, it's going to fall on a Saturday.
As Ms.
Yeah.
Lindsay said, next year. So my recommendation, if that's something that the board would move to leaving it on the actual 31st, would be more of a daylight trick-or-treating before the hours of darkness. Just it's a safety factor for the children as well. So maybe have it ending as it's starting to get dark.
Well, maybe you always have it on Halloween unless Halloween falls on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then you do it the Thursday before.
Oh my
That's what I was
gosh!
thinking.
You
No,
gonna be able to keep
that's a
that
very
straight?
that's a very simple
Well,
policy.
just no weekends. All you got to remember is no weekends. But we would have a year to talk about that.
we would have a year to discuss it.
And hopefully we'll be able to give you some data from what our call volume looked like, and perhaps it's going to be hard to quantify the foot traffic or vehicle traffic, but we can generally try and take a look at that if you all decide to change that date.
Well, in view of the fact we have the exciting minimum municipal obligation to discuss, why don't we maybe have a motion and we'll see where it falls. Anybody wish to make a motion?
Gary would.
I'll make a motion that this year in Lower Paxton Township, trick or treat night, Halloween, will be recognized, take place on October 31st.
Okay, it's been moved that we hold trick-or-treat night in Lower Paxton on October 31st. Is there a second?
Just this year.
Just this year. Is there a second? Okay, I'm hearing no seconds.
I
So-
mean, so he has a meeting tomorrow, but we won't have an opportunity to get together
For 2 weeks.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is sort of late,
That's
really.
really late. I'd be more interested in hearing what the recommendation is from our director, more specifically, instead of just giving us his 2
Well,
cents worth.
there's a motion on the floor.
Right.
So if there's no second, then the motion dies for lack of a second.
Right.
Can I second a motion? I can? Okay. All right. Well, for the purpose of actually moving us forward, I'll second the motion so we can actually move to a vote on it. Okay, now we can have additional discussion.
What do you think, Director?
Also, we have public comment that we want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, from my perspective, I would caution the board to keep it at the 24th this year.
Right.
And again, for so many reasons, just the unknowns and the amount of foot traffic and pedestrian traffic, as well as maybe I'll have the opportunity then to convince the others to move to that 31st date, but my suggestion would leave it as the 24th
This year. Concur.
Okay, we have a couple members of the public would like to address the issue. Would you please come to the podium, give us your name and address?
And as they approach, for people listening at home or who will watch this on YouTube later, the director recommended that we do not move the date this year.
Good evening, Board. My name is Eric Harvilitz of 2100 Woodview Drive. I was, sorry, I never stood up before.
That's okay. Don't be,
Welcome.
we don't
I was
bite.
actually the gentleman who started the petition to
Yeah.
find out whether or not more neighbors in our neighborhood would like to have trick-or-treat night on Halloween. And you have both sides. Of course, everybody's saying that's just how it's always been. Nobody makes a change. And I wanted to see why was it decided that it was a week before Halloween. And I actually reached out to Chief of Police Association, Dauphin County, Chief Warner. Is that the chief?
The current chief's Darrell Ryder.
Okay, I talked to a Chief Warner, I guess who's with Derry Township. So we currently have Berrysburg, Derry Township, Elizabethville, Halifax, Middle Paxton Township, and Washington Township, and now West Hanover that have their Halloween on the 31st. Chief Warner, I'm sorry, I thought he was in charge of the Chief of Police Associated Dauphin County. He must be Chief of Police of Derry Township. And he just said, our Board of Supervisors votes on the date for trick-or-treat night every year, and a couple of years ago decided Halloween would be the date chosen. It remained this way for the last couple of years, and this past month they made that permanent in Derry Township unless changed by a future board. The Dauphin County Chiefs of Police Association recommends the Thursday before Halloween to make things consistent, and it is up to each jurisdiction to decide what they're going to do. And I responded to him, and he just said, he's like, our township holds it in Halloween, which I'm all in favor of. So I'm really for, I would like to see us try the 31st, or even be on board with, if people feel that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is more dangerous, okay, we have it the Thursday before, so that we're at least in the same week as Halloween. And I have 3 children. I want them all safe, believe me, and I'm sure I have 250 signatures. None of us want to have our children get hurt, but, the week before Halloween, it just doesn't feel like trick-or-treat, and I think we can make a change to that date without, having everybody get hurt or any children get hurt, or, that's all I got.
So you listed, how many municipalities?
Last year, we had Berrysburg, Derry Township, Elizabethville, Halifax, Middle Paxton Township, and Washington Township. We're all boroughs or townships of Dauphin County.
So are these ones
And
not involved in the Dauphin County police chiefs?
Washington wouldn't be.
So with the exception of Derry, and
I'm afraid you might have to go up there, Director. I'm sorry, so that people can hear you.
oh yeah, I'll do right here, sir. Right there. That was from last year, 2018.
Yeah, so it appears with the exception of dairy, these are townships primarily covered by Pennsylvania State Police coverage. So,
They're all
you know,
near our end.
though they participate at the Dauphin County Chiefs, they don't offer any kind of
Like
binding.
West Hanover, so,
In South Hanover, right?
Well, that's if you're talking this year. I'm talking
Right,
off the list. that
right,
he's
but they
speaking of
all
here.
look at-
And the Hanovers, yes, that's state police coverage.
so for them logistically and cost-wise and everything, there's really no considerations to be made. They don't have police departments.
That would be correct. The state police are going to staff those days like they would staff any other day.
Any other
Okay.
day.
Except for dairy.
Would you like to speak as well?
Yes. Please give us your name and address when you come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Hameroff. I live at 2175 Versailles Drive. I came because I received an email about the petition, which I also signed, which went through change.org, and I heard that it was being presented tonight, so I wanted to come offer my support and also my perspective as a parent who is participating in the Halloween trick-or-treating process. I am a transplant to the area. I came from Baltimore and I lived in New York for a little while, so I had never heard of anything other than celebrating Halloween on Halloween until I moved here. My understanding actually was that we do trick-or-treating the last Thursday of the month. So everybody that I know was assuming that it was going to be on the 31st. It was very shocking to hear it would be on the 24th. But as a parent, I agree that it's not only confusing to have Halloween on a different day, it is logistically a nightmare. It is, to go off the analogy you said of having two Christmases. Halloween is Halloween regardless of when you do trick-or-treating. So as a parent, the pressure is now on to do multiple Halloween celebrations. We have gone to other trick-or-treating to other areas, the West Shore, on actual Halloween. People feel that they want to have parties, so you're now, as a parent, responsible for doing trick-or-treating on one day, Halloween parties on another day, and sort of having to keep up with all these different things with your children rather than just celebrating the holiday on the holiday in which it falls. I think that having the time-bound trick-or-treating from 6 to 8 is a fantastic idea. Growing up, there was no time-bound thing. It was just like all day. It was 10 o'clock in Baltimore. We were still getting trick-or-treaters. It was crazy. I think that does reduce the concern about having a lot of foot traffic, car traffic, and just people who are out partying. I'll also say, as a parent, as a mother, it would not bother me to have Halloween on the weekend. It would be better for me to have Halloween on the weekend. My husband works, he is a medical attending. He does not come home usually at 6 o'clock. So I am, as the mom, responsible for taking the kids trick-or-treating, which leaves nobody at my house to hand out candy. If I had the opportunity to have a weekend where he would be at home and I would be able to stay home, hand out candy, and he could take the kids trick-or-treating and not have to run the kids home from school, change all of our schedules, and do everything by myself. And I'm sure I'm not the only parent who is going through this. So that is all the things I wanted to share. I strongly recommend changing it to the 31st. I think that it is unusual and odd for children to celebrate Halloween an entire week before Halloween. And it also puts a lot of pressure on parents. So that's all I want to share.
Thank you. Yeah, you actually brought up a good point that I hadn't thought. I think the limitation of the hours is probably more important than the date. In terms of, by 8 o'clock or shortly thereafter, you've put an end to it. It's not going on till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at
As long as you
night.
turn your light off and don't answer the door.
Turn your light off and don't answer the door.
Yeah.
There's already people that just don't hand out candy anyway. Right. Any other public comment? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. So Shelley, since I anticipate there might be some various votes here, why don't we do a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Lindsay,
No.
Mr. Chrisman,
No.
Mr. Judd,
Yes.
Mr. Zumis,
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes. Okay, so this year, and this year only,
Sure. Let's see how it goes.
it'll be on the 31st, and we'll have the director in the police department track data very carefully. We'll see what sort of impact that has, and you have our opinions as they are to share with your fellow chiefs going forward. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the citizens who were here as well. It's interesting that you're able to do that many signatures that quickly using an app. So we See the power of the internet. Okay, now let's go to item C. This is action on resolution 19-26. We need to accept the minimum municipal obligation for the police and non-uniformed employees' pension plans in preparation for the 2020 budget. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, members of the board, per Pennsylvania statute, prior to September 30th, the township must certify its financial requirements and minimum municipal obligation for each of the 2 pension plans here within the township. This requirement also dovetails nicely with the 2020 budget preparation process, as the certification of the township's financial requirements and the MMO are part of the anticipated expenditures of the upcoming year. As prepared for the board tonight, Resolution 19-26 accepts the statements as presented by the township's actuary, Mockenhaupt Associates, out of Pittsburgh, allocating $1,309,700 as the police pension MMO and $801,000 as the non-uniformed employees pension plan. I would be happy to attempt to answer any questions that the board may have.
I will not ask you how they arrived at those numbers. Thank you.
Can you just give those numbers again from my note? I know we went through it before, but
Sure.
give me those numbers again.
So it's $1,309,700 for police and $801,000 for non-uniformed.
Thank you.
Board questions? Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2019-26, which accepts the minimum municipal obligation for the police and non-uniformed employees pension plan for to be included in the 2020 budget as presented and recommended by Mr. Gottschall.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any additional questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item D, this is action needed authorizing the township and the authority manager to execute letters of engagement for auditing services. And the firm selected, or potentially selected, is Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz. This will be for the 2019, 2020, and 2021 township and authority audits. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, before the board tonight are the 2 letters of engagement for auditing services provided again by Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz. At one point was the township's and authorities auditor at a previous round. One, of course, for the township and one for the township authority, each of which are, again, for the years ending December 31, 2019, 2020, and 2021. The township proposal is in the amount not to exceed $25,000 and will increase in the second and third years by 3% each of those years. And for the authority, the amount as proposed is not to exceed $15,000 and again will increase in the second and third years by 3%.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Questions from the board? Any public question or comment? The floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the engagement letter for auditing services from Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz for the 2019, 2020, and 2021 for both the township and the authority, with the amount of not to exceed $25,000 for the township and with an increase of not to exceed 3% in each of the following years, and with the authority to be $15,000 and a 3% not to exceed 3% in the following 2 years.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move to item E, subdivision and land development. We have taken care of the first item under there. Item 2 is action on resolution 1925. This would be to accept portions of Conway Road as part of the Kendall Oaks Development Phase 4. Again, Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, after having performed all necessary inspections and having received all necessary documentation, township staff and the engineer recommend approval of the dedication of the now reconfigured section of Conway Road in conjunction with the Kendall Oaks Development Phase 4 And I believe Attorney Peter Wirtz is here on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm Peter Wirtz, here with the law firm McNeese, Wallace & Nurick. We represent Conway Associates, LLC, and we are here to offer dedication of Conway Road. I believe on August 15th, 2019, we submitted to you the documents for dedication, which included a deed of dedication, a maintenance guarantee and street warranty, a release of mechanics lien, and an accompanying bonds. I believe shortly thereafter, there was an additional agreement which I gave to Shelley, and I'm not sure if you have it in front of you now, which is a full form on the maintenance agreement performance bond. So we just ask that you go ahead and dedicate the portion of Conway Road to the petition, and that you submit the deed to us once it's recorded. Thank you.
Okay. And this is just a relocation of the road?
Yes, it's a realignment of a very small portion in the Kendale Oaks development. It's at the intersection of Conway Road and Kendale Drive.
Okay. Board members, questions?
Mr. Gutschall, question again. Staff is recommending this approval, correct?
Yes, it is.
I
Yes.
assume so, but I'd like to memorialize it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Robin, Norton? No?
So we'll just
Chris?
add this
No,
to the
I'm good.
plowing, right?
That's what this would do, yes.
Okay, any public comment? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2019-25, which accepts portions of Conway Road as part of the Kendale Oaks Development Phase 4 as presented and recommended by staff.
So moved, is there a second?
Second.
Who gets the jump ball? Chris. Seconded by Chris. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Waited a long time to get to 2 minutes.
Sorry about that.
We now need to vote on improvement guarantees, et cetera, et cetera. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any questions about the improvement guarantees, extension, new and new? It seems to be
Okay.
pretty...
Mr. Gutschall, I ask you again, to me, they look okay, but are there any extenuating circumstances for any of the 3 extensions?
There are not.
Okay, I didn't see anything, and of course, the new are new. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the 5 improvement guarantees as presented and recommended by staff.
So moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zumas. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We now need to move to payment of bills for Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, I make a motion that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township and Lower Paxton Township Authority.
So moved. A second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any additional announcements from the board or the manager? Hearing none, our next meeting, we're off next Tuesday. We will be back on Tuesday, October 1st, right here at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved, second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.